right, thanks a lot, MJ and Cheryl, obviously for inviting me. And yeah, good morning, coaches. I know that it's a beautiful day outside in Cape Town. I'm surprised that there's so many of you that are sitting in. The golf courses are definitely beckoning. So yeah, if you need to go, that's absolutely fine. But this is a topic that I am really passionate about. It's something that I've been developing since probably 2010. And yeah, I'd love to share with you how I go about the planning for my young swimmers and how we look at particularly a 4-year plan up to level 3 and then a subsequent plan where we try and qualify for junior nationals and then how we go from there. So a few years back, I shared with you the pool that I coach from, a 20-meter pool at Virgin Active, and just having 3 lanes. So I showed you how we work with our swimmers in the lanes and how the squads progress. And I shared with you some particular program design through IM and freestyle. So I'm not going to settle too much on actual sets and the actual programming. I actually want to just talk to you about how a season plan works for us and how we take it through an 8-year plan to get through to junior nationals and then beyond. So yeah, I spoke to you a little bit about how we trained a few weeks ago on the How They Train series, and there were a few questions that came through there, and I felt I didn't really answer the questions as well as I wanted to. So this presentation is basically a spin-off of that so that you have a little bit more guidance in terms of how we train and how we take our swimmers through. So I introduced you to Connor and to Leeya a few years ago, and you will recognize them. I did show you a few of their drill progressions that we did last time. And these are the slides that you would have remembered seeing. This is Connor and Leeya now. They're 11 years old at the moment. This was back when I presented a few years back. I think it was 2017. So if we look back 4 years, I taught Leeya to swim when she was 5. And we spent a lot of time playing in the water when she was 5 and 6. And basic stroke development, and she was eventually ready to hop into my junior squad level 1 in May of 2016. And Connor came through from another swim school in our area, and together with a few of their friends from a local school and others who came from different schools, they spent a year together on the junior squad level 1. And in that season, they swam their first assessment gala, which is basically a 4 times 25 meter, just to check that they could swim the 4 strokes, and that they could touch legally, and that they could do a dive. And then later that season, we decided to transition them so that they could start getting ready for the next squad level junior 2. And they had their first short course gala, which is basic 50-meter racing and eventually 100-meter racing. Starting at age 8, May 2017, they then were ready for the junior squad level 2, and they spent 3 full seasons in that group. So that squad definitely got to know each other really well. And in those 3 full seasons, you would have had the older swimmers move on to the next squad, and you would have had younger swimmers joining them. So for 3 swimmers, they progressed in that squad, and they swam their first long course gala. And then last season, there were 10, and we started the transition through to junior level 3. And we would have then started now in May on the junior level 3 program. So in terms of racing, when they were 7 and 8, that first season, we weren't looking at any championship galas. We were just looking at getting them through an assessment gala where they could do 25s properly, and they could do a short course gala focusing on 50s. You'll see just now when I go through the actual season how they actually did finish off with a championship meet there, because the district had an 8 and under section. So that was quite nice for them to swim a championship gala at the end of that season. But the actual gala planning really started when they were age 8 or 9. And that was the season starting in May 2017. So that was their second season of training in a squad. That's where they had their first long course gala going 50s and 100s. And they finished that season with an SA level 1 champs. And then the following season, their goal was to swim level 2 champs. And here we added in the 200s. And then age 10 to 11 was their 4th season, where we would have finished now level 3 champs, 50s, 100s, 200s, and we would have added the 400 freestyle. So that's basically, if you look at those 2 pages, how we kind of went from 1 season into 3 full seasons, finishing their first 4-year plan onto the squad level 3, which is where we would have started now. And in terms of racing, we would have gone from assessment gala, just going 25s, into their first short course gala going 50s, and then the next season adding 100s, next season adding 200s, and the next season adding the 400 freestyle. So that's basically an outline of their first 4 years of training. And so I always like to look at the long-term participation development of a swimmer. And I'm not going to spend too long on this because I know that there's separate talks on this, but I like to see that I'm falling in line with the benchmarks that are set by Swimming South Africa. And I want you to keep this in mind as we go through the presentation this morning. So with Leeya and Connor, that first bit we've just spoken about was fundamentals and learning to train and really getting into the training to train. And then we're going to obviously look ahead to training to compete and competing to win. So I want you to see how I set up my squads to fall in line with this and with the age groups that are in play. So that first level that I would say is my junior level 1 group is where the fundamentals are spoken about, where the swimmers are going 2 to 3 sessions per week, rising to 4 to 6 sessions, and each session is 30 to 60 minutes. Now with Connor and Leeya, we really didn't do all of that. We definitely didn't go to 60 minutes. We really stayed down on the low end of this on 30 minutes and 3 sessions, but we did do a lot of high repetitions, low intensity work. And we played a lot. So this is really our first focus. That first group of ages 6 to 9-year-olds, it's a big age span, but if they've had a good learn to swim background and they've come through good stroke development, then you can put a whole bunch of swimmers together of that age and work with them on this level. So my focus with them was really just to teach fundamentals. So we focused a lot on breathing and maintaining good breathing patterns through swimming, very much technique focused, stroke development, understanding what it is that they needed to produce in their strokes, a lot of 25-meter repeats, and eventually working into 50, 100, and 200-meter double ups in training. So once they could do repetitions of 25s, we'd then hop up and do repetitions of 50s, and then repetitions of 100s, and then not many repetitions of 200s, but seeing if they can go from a 50 to 100 to a 200. A big IM focus, with a 100-meter IM being the main focus here, because we don't do a lot of butterfly in this particular squad. We really focus on 25s butterfly, a lot of fly kick, but then obviously putting the 4 strokes together and completing a full 100-meter. I do like to bring in the open water swimming here for the youngsters who really enjoy sort of a distance environment, and they can all do it. So you start with 100, you go to a 200, and then to a 400. So always with a support swimmer when they're first starting it, and we really make it fun and definitely not about winning it, more about participation. Yeah, and then the rest of the program focus very much on teaching the starts, the turns, the finishes, making sure they've got a nice strong kick, teaching them to scull, playing with relays, how to do relay changeovers, making it exciting, and then coming out of that program, racing 25s, 50s, and 100s. But as I said, I don't want to spend too long on the program focus. I actually want to talk about the year planning. So this is the slide that to me is more important. There's a lot of detail on here, and I've given Cheryl a PDF, so she's got all of this to send out to you so you can go and study it a little bit more in detail. But this is basically an outline of Leeya and Connor's first squad experience. So here's a photograph of them where they would have started out in the squad. I think they were 6 or 7 years old here. There's Connor, and here's Leeya here. And these children are all in the same grade, all in the schools in the area. So here you've got Nicholas, he's really tall. I'll talk a little bit about him as well. He's definitely an early developer and not quite the norm for this squad. This little guy here is tiny. He was a lot smaller than the others. But yeah, Connor and Leeya are in there amongst these other 7-year-olds. And basically I cut the season into 3 portions. So we go the winter months, May to August, and then we focus on September to December, and then January to April. So you'll see that trend going through the 8 years plan. So that very first block of winter training, we just did 3 times 30 minutes. We looked at a 3 times 6 week cycle. So we'd start with a 6 week cycle, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, and then we'd repeat it, and then we'd repeat it again. And that was the focus for winter. And each time we repeated that 6 week cycle, I'd make adaptations to it and see if we can improve. And then starting in September, that's when I started them transitioning into the Junior 2 program. I felt at that point that they were ready to step it up. So that's where I increased it then from 3 sessions to 3 to 4 sessions. And we went from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And we also worked on exactly the same 6 week cycle, but we only did 2 rounds. And we would have done a week's transition on the squad level 2 program. Now, obviously the squad level 2 is trained for a little bit longer, so I would have had to reduce the program to fit into the 45 minutes, and obviously made the sets a little bit easier so that they felt like they could do the work, but that they were challenged, and I could also test and see how they did it. And then I'd have a week's break for Christmas, and we'd come back in January, and then we'd focus through to the end of the season, and again we'd build the sessions. So instead of going 3 or 4 sessions, we were going 4 or 5 sessions, but we kept it to 45 minutes and we kept the same 6 week cycle. The only difference here is it was a longer block, so I could do a longer transition onto the Junior Level 2 program. So here in the middle of the cycle, we did 1 week and we did week 2 of the Junior 2 program. Here I did a 4-week transition and we started with week 2, week 3, week 4, and then week 5 of Junior Squad Level 2. And again, it was reduced. So to summarize it, going from squad level 1 to squad level 2, the first thing I did was increase the session length from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And then I increased the number of sessions gradually from 3 to 5 per week. And we used a reduced junior squad level 2 program. What I did like to do was, where we went from 30 minutes to 45 minutes, that extra 15 minutes, the swimmers that I felt were ready to transition to squad level 2, I would keep them in the water at the end of their level 1 squad time, and then the level 2s got in and they would swim the first 15 minutes with them as a combined warm-up, so that they got an idea of the pace that was being swum, they got an idea of how the set was slightly different, and it was short enough that they didn't feel like it was a terrifying experience for them. So that was a good way to do it. Instead of just lengthening their own session, keeping their session 30 minutes and then jumping in with the next squad for 15 minutes. So that was a lovely way to transition them comfortably. All right, so at the end of the season, I was looking at their results and checking to see that they did the events that I wanted them to do. So those are the 6 events that I like them able to do at the end of age 8 in a season. 50 free, 100 free, 50 back, 100 back, 50 breast, and 100 breast. You'll see gaps here because as the plan develops, you'll see these blank spots filled up with other events and times. I'm not too concerned with where they're placed. I just chucked it in there because it was interesting to read. But what I'm more interested in is their times. So I logged their times. I'm not too sure that they were even aware of their times at that age, but it's quite obvious to me where their development is coming through later on if I look at their times and how they progress. So you would notice here that this was swum at Boston Primary. It's an outdoor swimming pool and they were used to swimming indoors. And I remember quite clearly how Leeya was terrified of swimming that 100-meter backstroke outdoors, and she got a DQ because she just missed her turns and the sky was different rather than a ceiling, and she hates cold water. So that for her was not the best experience. But as an 8-year-old, and there weren't a lot of 8-year-olds there, she did pretty well, and Connor did pretty well as well, placing top 10 in most of their events. No medals though at that age. Here's Connor here, and there's Leeya. All right, and there's Nicholas, same age, a whole lot taller. He's standing on his toes a little bit there, but he's pretty much a head taller than most of the other 8-year-olds. Okay, so where do we go from there? So from that squad level 1 to squad level 2, the focus shifts from teaching to training. And if we look at the long-term participation development, I'm always interested to see, am I in line with the ages? So Leeya was 8 starting that season. Connor was 9 halfway into the season. So they definitely fall within the ages. The LTPD at this level goes 4 to 6 sessions per week. You'll see that I fall in line with that. And their session length goes from 60 to 90 minutes. We never went 90 minutes with them. We started at 60 minutes for quite some time. You'll see that now. And here they start talking about volume, how much work they're getting done. So I'm not going to talk to you too much about program and how much to do, etc. But we were going, in the beginning, 2Ks in an hour. So 4 times 2, we were probably on the bottom end for quite some time, and then starting to progress to holding up to 3 kilometers on a really big session day, which was very rare. So 3 times 4 is 12. So 8 to 12 kilometers, pretty much where we stuck. And remember, they stayed here for 3 seasons. So like I said, the focus is to train. And I really think that stroke count becomes one of the big focuses here. In a 20-meter pool, it's not as relevant, but when you're training and you're comparing 20 meters to 20 meters, it is quite relevant. So on each stroke, we would really work on what a good stroke count individually is, and teach them to remember to train with stroke count all the time. Technique remains the focus, and we're going a lot more 50-meter and 100-meter repeats rather than 25-meter repeats here. And we're starting to work on 100, 200, 400, and 800 double ups. So the 100-meter repeats then become 200-meter repeats, the 200-meter repeats become 400-meter repeats, and then we would throw in probably 2 to 3 800s to hit a main set volume of, gosh, 2.4 would be too much. So I would say 2 800s would be where we would go on a double up there. And then we would also learn to double up on all 4 strokes. So we'd go a 50 to 100 fly double up. We'd go a 50, 100, 200 backstroke double up, 50, 100, 200 breaststroke double up, etc. And we'll take the IM focus to the 200 meter rather than 100 meters. So there's a larger fly focus, not to say that we did a lot more volume in fly, but we definitely did a lot more faster 25-meter repeats, and we would start with 50-meter repeats, keep the kicking focus there, and build it into the 200-meter IM. Those swimmers that enjoyed open water, we then hopped up to 1,500 meters. At this stage, Leeya had already decided open water was not for her, and she attempted a 400, and that was it. She swam a granny breaststroke most of the way, and it was just too cold, and eventually it was piggybacked by her support swimmer most of the way. So she hasn't actually returned to open water. It hates the cold. Connor, on the other hand, has taken to it and really enjoys it, and he's actually done pretty well in terms of placing up higher levels on some fun swims, and yeah, he's pretty good at it. He's got good endurance. All right, also at this program focus, we introduced the concept of build-ups, negative splitting, even splitting, descending swims, just terminology that they're going to be coming across when they are a little bit older. So we teach them how to swim those types of events. At this point, we're also introducing pulling. So they get a pool buoy, and we started with finger paddles, not the bigger paddles, just the little ones. And still kept the relays and some good sprinting in there. And when they're racing, we added the 200 meter. So Connor and Leeya sat in this squad for 3 seasons. So yeah, this slide is extremely busy, but I just want to focus on a few things. First of all, the season is still broken up into 3 parts, as you can see: May to August, September to December, January to April. And going into the following season the same, and going into the following season is the same. So this last season here is where we're currently at. This is where we finished this last season. So 3 years ago, jumping from squad level 1 to squad level 2, Connor and Leeya then went 4 times 60-minute sessions. And we kept it at 4 times 60-minute sessions for that entire year. They were age 8, and they would have been 9 at the end of the season. The following season, we then picked it up to 5 sessions. So 5 60-minute sessions the entire year. So we just built up by 1 session. And then the following year is when we started the transition. Here, this little blue bracket is where we started the transition. So we started the season off at 5, which is where they were. And then I started to build. I brought in a Saturday morning, and we increased the length by 15 minutes to 1 hour and 15 minutes. And then prior to swimming SA level 3 champs, we did 7 sessions a week. So we brought in the Wednesday morning and we kept it at 60 to 75 minutes here. And what's important to note here is that we started with a Saturday morning on the level 3 program. And that would have been a reduced program because the level 3 program goes for 90 minutes to 2 hours. So they got a taste of what that level 3 program felt like. And then on that final block, we brought them in on a Wednesday morning where they actually swam with the junior 3s. And then they got an idea of the program as well as the type of speed and pace they were going to be training with. And so that Wednesday morning became quite an exciting one for them. And also that extra 15 minutes, like we did for level 1 to level 2, we kept them in the water after their own session and swam the first 15 minutes with the level 3 group so that they had an idea of the warm-up for 15 minutes daily. And then that Wednesday morning became a full session with them. So that was quite an interesting way to develop them through from the junior 2 to the level 3 program. We're still on a 6-week cycle here, but the actual program, the days that they're doing is slightly different. So week 2 is very endurance focused here, but the technique is there. All the way through the 6 weeks, they're still focusing on technique. Week 2 is an endurance week, and then week 3 is an IM switch, and then so we go through it. You'll see that we go same 16 to 18 week cycles all the way through, and obviously you manipulate that depending on how many weeks you have, but we would go 3 full cycles, adapting each cycle, adding sets, changing intervals, challenging them in different ways, adding speed or taking away speed and adding endurance. And then the second block, we'd go 2 cycles and we would do a preparation for a certain championship, something that we were working towards. So I just want to go in a little bit closer here. So if you can see this, so we'll go 3 6-week cycles, and then the next one we'll go 2 6-week cycles, and we'll do a week or 2 prep for a certain championship event here. That doesn't mean we move away from the program. We keep the program, but we just make sure that their heads and their minds are shifting towards preparing for something specific. And then going into the end of the season, we'd look at level 1 champs. So we would go 2 6-week cycles, prep them for level 1 champs, which was very early in March, I think, or might have even been in February. And then we would have to come back and finish the season, and we go back to week 2, week 3, week 4, and week 5. So there's an endurance focus there, IM switch, bringing them back to basics. And then as they hop up, you'll see that that transition goes from district championships prep, goes to junior provincial prep, and then we took them through to the senior championship prep. So each time we did that 2-week cycle and then did a prep, they would realize that the preparation became quite specific. And each time we did that preparation, we would build on the previous season's preparation. So I'd look back and see what we did there, and then I would make sure there was improvement going into the next one. And so we would do the same for level 1, going to level 2, and going to level 3. All right, so if we look down at the bottom here, transitioning from junior squad level 2 to squad level 3, as a summary, the first thing we did was increase the session length from 60 minutes to 75 minutes. And you would have noticed that would be from age 8 through to age 11. All right. So 60 minutes to 75 minutes. And they joined the junior squad level 3 immediately after their own session for the warm-up. We increased the number of sessions gradually from 5 to 7. And session 6 would be on a Saturday morning on the reduced junior squad level 3 program. And session 7 would be on a Wednesday morning combined with the junior squad level 3s. And that's basically how Connor and Leeya in their squad went for the last 3 seasons, building up to where we've just finished our prep for level 3 championships. All right, and then I love to look at how their season has gone. I wish I could have put in the level 1s here, sort of season, the squad level 1 results, so you could see the improvement from the 50s to the 100s. But let's go through it. So that for the first season, we were aiming for level 1 champs, and that was indoors at Fairmont. So there's no DQ for Leeya, no 100 backstroke. The following season, we went to East London for their first long course championship. Connor actually did not go to level 2 champs. So these are actually his season best times. They're not his championship times. And then our last season would have gone to level 3. So these are also season best times. They didn't get to swim level 3. So that's not going to be quite reflective. So I think what's good to bear in mind here is that they usually swim faster at a championship event. If I look back on how things went from level 1 to level 2, they normally swim a little bit faster. So I have to assume that they would have been a little bit quicker than these times. But let's have a look at the progression. So Leeya, her 50s are terrible. I must just tell you, if we look here, she comes 23rd, 20th, 26th, whereas her 100s, she's coming 6th, 8th, 13th. So the thing with Leeya is she spins. She thinks that the faster she moves her arms, the faster she's going to go on a 50. So that's why her 50s are not so good. But on 100, she calms down a little bit and holds the water a lot better. So at level 1 champ, she's placing 6th, 8th, and 13th. And I only put the placings in there because it's interesting to see the difference between the 50s and the 100s. But for Connor, it's interesting to see that he stays roughly 9th and 10th, 7th, 9th, 9th, and 8th, 9th. So he's quite consistent in his rankings across all 4 strokes. And if you look down, you'll also see Leeya goes, let's rather look at the 100s. She goes a 133, down to a 125 the following year, down to a 118. And then backstroke, she goes 142. There she was a bit slower, 144 long course. This was actually quite interesting. Let's talk through that quickly. 100 back, 200 back at level 2. If you double this 100 back time, it gives you a 329. And she actually made the final of the 200 back, and she came 6th in a 317. So hello, what happened here? She was probably on the stands jumping around, having fun, and not quite thinking about this 100. Inconsistent all the way through, actually. She's just up and down, but great 200 backstroke. So definitely potential there. Yeah, so if you look at Connor, let's look at his 100. So he went from freestyle 129 to 125 to 118. Backstroke 137 to 135 to 128. Nice improvements. Breaststroke 152, 147, 139. So it's great to see that through the 3 seasons, there's been good improvement. And you'll see here now that these blanks are starting to fill up. So the second time around they swam level 1 champs, they added the 50 fly. That's the first time that they swam that as 9-year-olds. And then level 2, we added the 200 freestyle, we added the 200 backstroke, the 200 breaststroke, and the 200 IM. I'm just going to explain the colors to you here. So that yellow was obviously making finals. This gray bit, Leeya struggles with breaststroke. She did not race breaststroke at level 2 champs. We left those 3 out, so those are her season's best times there. And her 50 free and her 50 fly, she swam it, but she did not have a qualifying time for those 2 events at the end of the season. So those are additional events. But what's great is she still had a full spectrum of events in terms of what we wanted to achieve. And the same with Connor. He didn't go to level 2, but he did not have a 50 free, a 50 breast, and a 50 fly qualifying time, but he could have added 3 additional events. So he could have swum a full spectrum of events at level 2. So if we build that into level 3, that's where we added the 400 freestyle, and we added in the 100 fly, going from age 10 to 11. Those are the 2 events that we added to their spectrum of events. Leeya had entered 10 events for level 3, and Connor also entered 10 events for level 3. We like them to participate in as many as possible at this age. So I don't think they have qualifying times for the 50s at level 3. They can only qualify for 100, 200 and up. So Leeya would have swum all these events. She added the 200 free as an additional event. She didn't have a qualifying time going in, and she added the 100 fly. And obviously we left out the breaststroke. I see she didn't even swim a 200 breaststroke the entire season. That's bad coaching. She should have at least done 1 200 breaststroke there. I didn't pick that one up. And then Connor, he added his 50 free, 50 back, and 100 back as additional events there. So that's what they would have swum at level 3. So yeah, here we've got them at level 1, level 2, and level 3, starting to win some medals at district championships. But if we have a look at where they ranked at the end of the last season, you'll see some interesting placings here. All right, so Leeya, ranking 75th, 78th, 43rd, 194th in breaststroke. This is based on the Swimming South Africa rankings as at the 1st of May. Connor, 88th, 44th, 54th, 39th, 40th. So why I've highlighted in yellow is I like to see what their top 3 rankings are. And this is in preparation for junior nationals. Where would they be if they'd gone to junior nationals? So Leeya's top events going to junior nationals, this is just a guess. She would have been somewhere around 17th in her age group. Because at level 3 as an 11-year-old, that's the top of your age group. So 17th on the 400 freestyle, 34th on the 200 backstroke, and 21st on the 100 fly. Now, not a lot of swimmers do the 400 free and the 100 fly at a younger age. So those rankings are not that relevant, but this 200 backstroke is good. I'm quite happy to see that her level 2 final gave her 200 back as her main event. So definitely in my mind, I'm going, Leeya, 200 backstroke, good. And then I'm also looking at her 200 back and her 200 IM, and I'm comparing those two. I actually want to go back a slide. I'm going to come back to that now. Looking at Connor, I can already see his 400 free is one of his best. His 200 brace is one of his best. And I love the fact that his 200 IM is in there as well. But he's quite similar on most of his 44th to 30s and 26. So he kind of sits around the 20s and 30s. So that's quite nice to see where he could have been. I just want to go back one slide quickly. If you have a look at the 200 backstroke and the 200 IM, I love to check how close those 2 times correlate. So 200 back, Leeya's going a 317, and her 200 IM's a 345. I want those 2 times to be a little bit closer. Connor's going a 321, 200 back, 316. So within a year, I would have liked to have seen Leeya improving her 200 IM to match up with the 200 back, and Connor improving his 200 back to correlate with the 200 back. So let's see, at the end of this season, Leeya went to 310 best time 200 back, and she was in a 310 200 back. So now I know those 2 are on par. And I like to coach the 200 back like I coach the 200 IM. Connor, 305 on the 200 back and 303 on the 200 IM. So that's getting closer together. And it's the same with the 100 fly and the 100 back. So this past season, Leeya went to 128 100 back and she went to 130. Pretty similar. Connor, 128 100 back, 131 100 fly. I need to work a little bit on that 100 fly to get closer to that 100 backstroke. Yeah, so if I ever did a talk on programming, I would talk you through why we do that 200 back, 200 IM combination, 100 back, 100 fly combination. I like to work those together. Fly back and IM train really well together. And then obviously I look at the double up here from 50 to 100 to 200 to 400 on freestyle, and I check to see. Now the 50s at this age for me are not as relevant because like Leeya, she spins through a 50, so doubling that up gives you an immediate double up, which is not right. She should be a lot quicker on that 50. And she'll learn to swim that 50 as we progress through the ranks. And doubling up the 118 to a 200, that gives you a 236, 237. So yeah, she's 20 seconds slower there. Whereas Connor's 118, 236 is almost within 10 seconds on the double up there. So yeah, you can play around with these statistics and see where you need to improve and adapt your program based on those types of results. All right. So we've talked through their rankings, and now we need to look ahead at where we want to go from here. So basically the next 4 years, we would be looking at this current season, either going back to level 3 or qualifying for junior nationals. And we'll repeat the events that we did last season. The next season, we'll look at qualifying for junior national champs, and we'll look at adding the 800 free, 1500 free, 200 fly, and 400 IM. At this age 13, it's a good place to try those events for the first time, I believe. Because the following year at 14, they're at the top end of that 12 to 14 age bracket where they're racing those events for a medal at the age of 12 to 14. So then we repeat those events the following season. So that's a good try, and then we try and improve it. And then going age 14 to 15, their final season in their 4-year plan, we'll start to talk about more senior open events. And we like to start that off at SA short course, and then we'll repeat junior nationals again. Obviously, this depends on what Swimming South Africa is going to do in terms of winter champs going forward. I'm not sure if they're looking at doing a junior winter champs going forward, or if they're going to leave it as a senior open and invite the junior national qualifiers. I don't particularly enjoy seeing young swimmers going to SA short course unless they are at a level where it's going to benefit them. So for Leeya and Connor, if you look at their progression, really the first time I would send them is in the season where they're age 14. All right, so I've got my results sheets ready for the next few seasons, and there they are. Full spectrum of events. Eventually, when we get to season 6 and season 8, there's your 800 and 1500 freestyle. We've got the 200 fly coming in, and we've got the 400 IM coming in. But prior to that, I start talking to them about junior nationals. And we look at how far off we are from those junior national qualifying times. It's a pity we didn't get to swim level 3, because I would have loved to have seen whether any of them had managed to make the jump as an 11-year-old into those 12-year-old times. If they were swimming level 3 times at the age of 11 onto the 12-year-old times, that really would have seen where we would have been. But now obviously we can't do that, and I don't even like to do it off of their season best times, because I'm quite confident that they would have gone faster at level 3. So yeah, that would have been for a normal season. I would have done it like that. But everything's in preparation and we are ready to go. We know what we want to achieve. All right, so jumping up from level 2 to level 3. Here we're going age 11 to 15, 12 to 16, sessions per week, 6 to 12. I definitely don't go 12, and I definitely only stay down 6 to 8 with these guys. 60 minutes is a little bit short. We go 90 minutes and eventually build up to 120 by the end of the 4-year plan. And we're looking at the mileage staying really low. And when we start off at 24 to 30, we'll be lucky to hit 40 kilometers in this group. But as they're moving over to the junior national program, we'd love to be going 40 plus. So yeah, our focus now is really building the engine, like they say, training to train, and we're training to race. So aerobic capacity is something that we're really building here. Technique stays a focus. We're doing all types of repeat distances, and I love to change it up, vary it, make it interesting. The main set length becomes important here. I don't like to go less than 2,400 meters on a main set length. So when they're coming into this group, we try and get them going 1.6 to 2.4 almost immediately on a main set, and build to that main set quite soon. The intensity is very relevant here. They need to be training at the right speed, and that's where we'll bring in some heart rate work so that they understand how their bodies are reacting to swimming faster. And then recovery becomes important here as well, how much rest to take. And on very aerobic sets, we like to go main set length between 2.4 to 3 kilometers, keeping that rest interval at 30 seconds or less between repeats. So let's say we're going a set of 12 200s freestyle, resting 30 seconds and maintaining a heart rate level that is comfortable, that they can maintain that rest interval. That's just one example. And then we'll take the IM focus to the 400 IM, build the open water to 3 kilometers, and introduce them to SA open water champs, but that's another talk all on its own. And this is probably the first time we'll really start talking about tempo, getting stroke rates going. We'll talk about broken swims, race pace work, so that they understand how they should go out on their first 50, what they should be doing on their second and third 50, what they need to do on their coming home 50. What their splits are, and then doing race formulation sets so that they are practicing those race splits and the relevant tempo, stroke rates, and heart rates. At this point, we'll introduce big paddles, and I just like to bring in the extras so that there's, it's just variety really is key. We sometimes bring in a snorkel here as well. I didn't add that in, but a snorkel and big paddles is great to add. And band for paddle pulling, so take out the pull buoy and use a band as well. Yeah, we keep the relay focused. We're still doing a lot of sprinting so that they are staying fast, and we're adding in the 400, the 800, and the 1500. The 400 is the IM, and the 800 and the 1500 is freestyle. So here we've got their traditional macro when they're going the first time through junior squad level 3. So if we had gotten back in the water in May, I would have started them off at 6 times 90 minutes. In September, in spring, I would have added in a 7th session. So in the beginning, we wouldn't have done that Wednesday morning session. We would have just done afternoons and Saturday, and we would have then added in the Wednesday morning, and then built through to the end of the season, holding 7 90-minute sessions. The biggest difference here is that we switch from a 6-week cycle to an 8-week cycle. So the cycle becomes a little bit longer. So they're learning to hold that endurance for a longer block. So we'll do the 8-week cycle, and we repeat the 8-week cycle. And again, you have a championship prep there. And then we just repeat that going into Western Cape Champs in December. But we're adding in that morning session. So the mileage is a little bit more. They're getting a bit more volume done. And then in that final bracket, we're just repeating through to SA Level 3 Champs. Or Junior Nationals, if they were to qualify. And then I thought I must just throw in a bit of the COVID here, because it's not a traditional season, is it, in any way? So I thought I'd share with you a little bit of the plan going back to training. So at the moment, we're busy with mindset sessions and dry land sessions. So they're currently doing 6 45 minutes rather than where they would have been going 6 90-minute sessions. But they're still getting 6 sessions in. And instead of focusing on swimming, we're focusing on dry land, where our focus is on healthy minds and full body conditioning. We really want to get them in a place physically where they're going to be ready to get back in the water, and mentally to make sure that they're okay. So yeah, not being in the water can be quite daunting for a swimmer, but we're talking them through that process. And so twice a week, we're talking to them and making sure that their goals are there, and that when they do go back to swim, that they're physically in shape, but they're also mentally in the place that they can be all right to continue. So we're hoping to go back on the 1st of July. And so that's 7 weeks building up to the 16th of August. So I thought we would do something like this. We'd start off with 3 45-minute swim sessions where we just go back to basic stroke refreshment, hypoxic work, get their breathing sorted out, and develop their kick. They've been doing quite a lot of dry land work, so we know that their legs should be strong. So we can get back in and get their legs going, get the breathing sorted out, work on their technique, and even keep the mindset and dry land sessions going, so that they're still doing 6 sessions a week, but 3 of them will be swimming, and then we'll do maybe one mindset session and 2 dry land sessions, just so that they keep that continuity going. The following week, we'll add a session, and then we'll add another session, and then we'll add another session. So within 4 weeks, they're going 6 swim sessions. And during that time, we'll go back to their level 2 program, just so that we're building it up gradually and eventually getting to a full week of Monday to Saturday training. At that point, we can start to increase the length of the swim. And we'll add a level 3 set on the Saturday, or a Saturday, and just add some level 3 warm-ups so that they get back to where they would have been. And then we'll increase to 75 minutes, starting on the level 3 program, but maybe reducing the main set so that they're not doing 2.4, but maybe doing 1.6 there. And then we'll go to, in week 7, their first full week on the squad level 3 program. We'll do week 1, which is really a preparation week. It's very technique based. And then we can assess if we're back to where we want to be. But the key thing here with this whole COVID thing is just to remain flexible and to change what needs to be changed, adapt, and continue to prepare the mind and the body. I think what's important here is if you find they're back in the water and they're actually fine on 3 45-minute sessions, you can pick it up. But we'll have to just see how it goes. And also we don't know if we're going to be able to be in on the 1st of July. So we'll have to just see. And then after that, from the 17th of August to the end of the season, if we have a Western Cape Champs, we'll go back to our 2 8-week cycles at 7 sessions of 90 minutes each, and then going into level 3 and junior nationals will repeat that block. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens, but that's kind of a plan for going back in the water. After this season, so 2021 to 2022, and then the following season, 2022 to 2023, we'd like to see the transition to the junior national program. So here you can see we're going to increase from 6 sessions of 1 hour and 15 minutes to 7 sessions. And then we're going to increase from 7 sessions of 1 hour, 5 minutes to 8 sessions. And eventually finish off in season 7, 8 sessions of 120 minutes. So this transition here is really about building that engine, getting the volume up, making sure that their aerobic capacity is such that they can start to work more specifically when they come out of this block here. And as you can see, it's very gradual. All right, so we keep the 2 8-week cycles, but instead of breaking it up as 2 8-week repeats, we go 1 big 16-week cycle. So this is your more traditional macro cycle here. And we'll base it on the junior national program, but keep a lot of the sets that we do on the level 3 program so that they're familiar with the sets, but that they don't get that break in between the cycle. They've got to go straight through. So the endurance is taken to another level here. And they also get to do a bit more on the junior national squad program, which is a little bit more specific, a little bit more quality work. So they're working faster. Their speed is picking up here. So they'll attempt it here, and 1 hour and 15 minutes is not in, 1 hour and 45 minutes is not enough to get a full junior program in. So we reduce it all, and we make it very manageable the first time they go through it. The second time they go through it, we'll pick it up a bit and make it a little bit tougher. And then in season 7, we go 3rd attempt, and then we'll go 4th attempt, and then their final block from January 2023 to April 2023. Hopefully by then they're junior national qualifiers. They're 13 going on 14. They're at that top end of junior nationals in terms of the 12 to 14 medalists. That'll be their first attempt at a full junior national squad program. And hopefully they would have adapted really well and they would have had a full spectrum of events. So if we just summarize the transition, increasing the session lengths from 90 to 105, and then to 120. And again, we'll join the junior national squad immediately after their own session for the warm-up. It's a great way to introduce them to the swimmers. It's a great way for them to feel the speed and also not feel like they're in the water too long and they can't cope. And then we increase the number of sessions gradually from 6 to 8 per week. Session 8 becomes a Monday morning. So then we'll be going Monday morning and a Wednesday morning and a Saturday morning to get to their 8 sessions. And then we start with a reduced version of the junior national program and gradually adapt it into a complete cycle by the end of that season. So that's their 7th season. At that point, when they're 14, hopefully they are swimming at junior nationals and not sure whether they'll be making finals, but that's the point at which I'd like to introduce them to senior qualifying times. So these are the SA short course times. Well, it's the senior times converted to short course. I'm not sure what Swimming South Africa is going to do going forward, but I'd like to give them this so that they have an idea. And we would go back to their results sheet and we'd see where they are. And then we'd decide together whether it's worth going to SA short course or not. And that's a discussion we would have together as a group, as a squad. Individually, they'd look at their own times and decide for themselves what they think. And then as a group, we would decide what we're going to do as a team. And then we start looking at the transition from level 3 to national. So here we're starting to go from racing to becoming more specific. The focus shifts from racing to specific training. And the reason we do that is because it's now about performance. And here we're looking at the ages for LTPD. We're on our 8 sessions per week. We're going 90 to 120 minutes. Our mileage is definitely looking at around 35 to 40 and the top end on 50 if we're working very specifically. So the specificity is there, the technique stays there, but we start to work more with the sprint group, the middle distance group, and the distance group. You kind of can get a sense of who is going in which direction. And we'll work that first block to SA short course. And in that block, we'll work on preparation first, doing the technique work. Then we'll do an endurance block. We'll add in a lot of short sprinting and a short taper. The second block, going into provincial champs, we've got a bigger endurance block, but we're adding in quality and specific work and a lot more race pace work. So here we've got a lot more speed coming in. And then their third block towards SA NJ will have quite a mixed block of work because we'll be dividing sprint, middle and distance. And the racing focus will also be such that either it's open water or it's going to be junior nationals or whatever it is in terms of their main stroke or their main event. And so we start to look at this as sort of the main trend. So they're at the maximum of 8 sessions per week. We're at a maximum of 120 minutes per session. We've got our 16-week cycle and we're working towards SA short course, provincial champs and national champs at the end of the season. And this is really where we want them at the end of their 8 seasons. 14 going on 15 and getting ready now to transition into their next level of swimming. So instead of having a full spectrum of events on results, we'll now start to see specific strokes coming through. So you'll either get all the results falling in one section here, or you'll get 200 meter results, 200 meter results, 200 meter results, or we'll be going 4, 8 and 1500, 400 here or 200 fly. So this starts to become very individualized and more specific. And then we can start to look at what's going to happen in the next 4 years and what's going to happen in the next 4 years. Whether Leeya and Connor are still going to be swimming at that point, who knows? We can't control that, but we can control the build up to when they decide their swimming career comes to an end. And we also need to be very mindful of the fact that they're not the only swimmers in the group. We've got a lot more swimmers around them. So, you know, we've seen how Leeya and Connor are developing. We'll see how Nicholas develops around them. He's that early developer I spoke about. He's already at the age of 11, younger than Leeya and Connor, ranked second in the 400 freestyle of all the 11-year-olds in South Africa and already got junior national qualifying times at the age of 11. So, you know, you've got a mixed group of swimmers. They've all got different aspirations in terms of wanting to go to the Olympics or not going to the Olympics. Leeya just loves to swim. She's not very competitive. She's just a joy to coach. Connor is very A personality. Everything must be done correctly. And if he can't do it, he almost wants to give up. So yeah, it's going to be carefully managing those going through. And I think a large part of that is now going to fall onto Amy, who's taken over the squad. And she's going to have her first run at developing the program further with her own little twist. And I'm going to be in the back watching and advising and helping where she needs it. So yeah, that's basically where we're going. And we'd love to see the swimmers develop further, and hopefully we can take a few with them in terms of getting up to senior ranks. So yeah, that's all I have for now. MJ, I think if there are any questions, I know it's almost 11 o'clock already. I'm very happy for people to leave if they want to, but I'm willing to stay for another 30 minutes or so if there are any questions that anybody would like to ask.
Thanks, Bianca. Thank you very much for your time. Just to let all the coaches know that we will send you the recording and we will send you the documents that you've got them, because what we find is for the coaches, it's a lot of information to take in all at once. Sorry, I just knocked my tea off my counter. I've just sent it flying. So we'll send you all the documents with that link so that you'll have time to go through them when you need it. So you'll get that, so don't worry about it. There's a lot of questions coming through about that. I've got one question here from Ian. He says, yes, when you transition swimmers between groups, do you move them as individuals or in groups? Also, do you move them at the beginning of the new seasons or mid-season if you think they're ready?
I definitely don't like to transition one swimmer on their own. It's quite a daunting thing for them to go from one squad to the next. So I like to have a group. I almost like to coach them a squad per lane. So we've got 3 lanes, and let's say Connor and Leeya would have done their 3-year plan on that level 2 program. in lane 1 for the first season, and then second season they moved to lane 2, and then they moved to lane 3, and then from lane 3 everyone in that lane would then move up into the next squad. So I like to transition in September. September to December to me is the best time to transition, because it's not a very pressured time of the season in spring, and they get a good feel for what's to come in the new season. January to April is more focused on getting ready for champs. So I don't like to do any changes then. January to April, I hardly ever move things around. We do any changes September to December. And then if I'm going to start a brand new season in May, then they've already had that transition, and then they'll start the brand new season off in their new group. But usually there's about minimum 3, but I like to move at least 4 to 5 up at a time. Obviously, it's dependent on space and availability. MJ, have you got any more?
Yes. Thanks, Bianca. I think that that's all. There's people asking for lots of information. We'll go through it and see what we're able to provide to you. I think that it was a wonderful session, and I know that you've given freely of your time, for which we are most grateful. It's so wonderful that people like you are really prepared to just share and give of it just because you can. And we can all learn from each other's experiences. It's been awesome. Thank you very much, coaches. You'll hear from Cheryl soon. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a lovely day further, and hopefully we'll see you at more of our programs. Cheers.
Thanks, MJ. Thanks, everyone.